Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Yes, I know how the title of this video sounds, and I expect that there are hordes of internet nids flocking to the comment section to question if I've caught the destroyer plague or something. No, I'm just fine. And no, I haven't been hired by the Imperium to work in their outreach department in order to increase tourism in the idyllic Milky Way galaxy. This video is not a travel brochure. Though there are currently some Jungle World resorts featuring unbeatable all-inclusive rates for 2-week stays, so comment below if you're interested. But I digress. Here's why I'm doing this video. A few months ago, I did a bit of a philosophical video in which I pondered the question, is the Imperium of Man right to exercise power as they do in the galaxy? And in that video, I made a passing comment that despite the horror that is the human condition in the 42nd millennium, 40K fans still seem to want to enter its universe. And of course, commenters were quick to remind me that in fact, they do not want to be there under any circumstance. And so that all got me thinking, just how bad would it be to live in the 40K universe? Okay, probably pretty bad. Maybe that version of the future does have its problems. For one, the galaxy is in a constant state of war, and because of that fact, a largely autocratic galactic human government has risen in the form of the Imperium of Man and wields supreme power over the fates of men, committing many of such lives to the war effort. Of course, perhaps the more effective way to posit this problem is that the galaxy is overrun by malicious xeno races who threaten the future of mankind. Humanity is no longer the outright dominant race in existence. Actually, the Necron's power and the Tyranids' numbers make those two races pretty clear favorites in the galaxy. And beyond the Xenos, there's the Warp, a realm of psychic energy, basically hell, from which all sorts of demons exist and at times spill forth into real space. And it is this realm through which humans must travel to traverse the galaxy. And outside of war, the many of the trillions of humans who aren't serving in the Imperium's military live on overpopulated hive worlds, stacked on top of each other, impoverished and subsisting in abominable conditions. There's even indentured servitude and instances of slavery that persist among humanity as well. Honestly, I could probably make a 10-hour video breaking down the bleak state of affairs in the 42nd millennium and still would have covered little ground as far as the crappiness of life in that time goes. So I'm not going to waste too much time doing that. Most of y'all know the deal. You know what life is like for humans in 40K. And I'm also not going to relitigate the Imperium's leaders' justification for doing the things they do. I did that in the video I referenced earlier. The point of doing this video is to determine if perhaps living in the 40K universe wouldn't be as bad as some may think. And here's my argument. The 42nd millennium might be dystopian, but to me, it's not post-apocalyptic. It's not as if humanity in that time has awoken to a Mad Maxian existence as some people seem to imply. Actually, 40K's universe is one in which humanity has progressed. Perhaps not always linearly, I mean there has been stagnation for long periods, but progressed nonetheless. And while yes, the Imperium of Man is a massive bureaucratic machine rife with rigmarole, there are millions of planets in the Imperium, and many of them are functioning, have stable societies, law and order, and technology. Yes, these planets are ultimately required to acquiesce to the Imperial government and offer it tithes in the form of manpower and resources. However, as long as they pay this tithe, which helps the Imperium maintain its essential fighting force, and recognize the authority of His Holiness, they are for the most part left alone to govern themselves. And here you may say, well, these planets are not full democracies where individual freedoms abound and people prosper en masse. Or you may say, well, many of these planets left to their own devices actually oppress people and are overwhelmed with corruption. But I would say back to you, well, what did you expect come the age of extrasolar technology and man's expansion into the stars? Do you think that a future in which humanity has successfully spread its empire across the galaxy would be absolutely peaceful and ideal for every single person? No, progress requires trade-offs, no matter how much of an effort you make to foster and preserve human rights. People always have a tendency to look at the state of society and if it's not perfect, declare it a failure. Yes, people suffer in 40K. People suffer all over the world today as well. But I'm not sure it's possible to make no one suffer, whether humanity prospers or not. And certainly we don't know how much more suffering alternative timelines would have wrought. So humans in 40K are not post-suffering, but they have mastered space, and that's a pretty goddamn good achievement. Humanity has made it. The way we should look at the situation in this universe is that humanity did not perish on Earth. Despite all of the other factors you think are important, individual rights, hunger, or whatever, in the long run, the really long run, overall human survival is probably most important. And you may say, well, in other sci-fi universes, humanity has made it off of Earth, but life isn't as bad. Well, fine, but most of them are not as comprehensive or well thought out in detail as 40K's is. And 40K also takes place a lot further into the future. And life in the 40K universe isn't all bad. Not only has humanity settled millions of new worlds, but they have all sorts of advanced technology that makes life easier, albeit at times more dangerous. Medical technology, for instance, is one area that has really come along. Life extension technologies are capable of keeping people alive for much longer than humans are capable of in the present day. And some of you will argue that such technology isn't available to the majority of the Imperium citizens. And that may be true, but it does exist, and so there's hope that eventually it will be. I suppose, to be fair, given all of the war in the 40K universe, the life expectancy there is probably still around like 3. Though if we factor in the Emperor, that number goes up significantly. The other good news is that humanity has innovated all sorts of technology that allows the Imperium to sufficiently defend itself. From ships to guns to exterminatus weapons, humans have invented what they need to contend against the threats that ail them. The humans in that time don't live under a government that's totally incapable of defending them. Actually, humanity has a pretty impressive military, from its legendary battle fleets to its space marines. That's good news. Oh, and the Imperial Guard. Yeah, the Guard, they die well. And as of yet, there are no alien races that appear to be invincible, save for maybe the Necrons, who are lazy as fudge anyway. And you may say, well, there being no aliens capable of defeating humans would be a much better proposition. But again, what did you expect given mankind's extension into deep space? Were you hoping that we'd never discover new life? And if we did you expect that all of such life would be weaker than humans? Really think about this now, because in the present day well, not me, but smart humans are trying to build technology that will allow us to explore space and perhaps one day find so-called aliens. It's likely that in any scenario in which humanity survives tens of thousands of more years and successfully achieves extrasolar travel, that humans will at times not be the dominant race in the domains in which they exist. What I'm getting at here is that while 40K might not be everyone's ideal reality, it may be the one that balances a high enough quality of life with, realism. Realism not in terms of the specific alien races, technology, and magic, but in terms of humanity's role and power in the galaxy. And by the way, the galaxy isn't exactly in a complete state of war. I actually think, please spare me Inquisitors, that there is a potential for compromise between certain Xeno races and humans, at least a lot more than what there has been so far. Races like the Eldar and the Necrons have not exactly shown a strong desire to wipe out humanity, and the whole chaos situation might actually end up producing some interspecies bonds between humanity and Xenos. And the potential for partnership between humans and Xenos also offers hope that one day the warp won't be needed for FTL travel. After all, races like the Necrons don't use the warp to travel between distant points in space. Perhaps another angle I could have taken in this video is to posit that human intransigence to working with Xenos is not a policy conducive to human persistence in the galaxy. Here's another thing. While yes, humankind is constantly under threat of extinction in 40K from Xeno races and chaos, humanity itself is in large part united. That's what great enemies can beget: unity. See, here's why all of the obstacles and hellish ghouls in the 40K universe aren't actually an indication of a reality that is moving in the wrong direction. It's these types of things that drive humanity to progress. The medtech we talked about earlier, that's born out of a society in which casualties are constant, supply and demand. Ships and weaponry capable of protecting humans as they venture across light years, those are the result of the Herculean enemies that have arisen in their time to threaten their existence. It's bad forces that create good ones. It's obstacles that create strength. You can't have one without the other. Just as always, competition and fear drives progress, and a galaxy full of threats is, in a weird way, a sign of a galaxy in which human potential is on the path to maximization. On a bit of a deeper note, the discovery of the warp wasn't all that bad of a happening either. Yes, the entities of the warp are likely invincible and that it's unclear if they can truly be destroyed. However, that they exist means there's more to existence than material life, and this fact ultimately diminishes the significance of life and death. Yeah, there's a lot of death in the 40K universe, but everyone dies at some point, save for you-know-who. But for the people living in this time, though most of them are not aware of it, there exists an otherworldly realm that proves that death may not be the end. Not a lot of sci-fi universes or imagined futures in general feature such an ontologically revelatory element as this. And you know, I have to add, the 40K universe, though teeming with suffering peoples, is a pretty colorful and interesting place. At least the future isn't as boring for humanity as present-day life on Earth is. Still, the main point of this video is that while life is hard for people in the 42nd millennium, they don't necessarily live in a future void of hope. I actually think the opposite is true. And while perhaps you might choose your present reality over life in 40K, I'm not so sure the vast majority of humans who will come to exist long into the future will feel quite the same way. But hey, the whole point of this video is just to get everybody thinking, so get over to those comments down below and let me know what your thoughts are. Like this video. If you enjoyed, give one of those big thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a damn thing. For now, my name is American Ben. I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.